You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews with founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to This Week in No Code plus AI. I'm JJ, and we have an absolutely stellar episode lined up for you today featuring Jacob, the founder and CEO of Relay.app, the AI agent and automation platform. Before founding Relay, Jacob was the product lead for Gmail and Google Calendar, where he drove AI innovations used by millions back in 2013, 14, 15, etc. He got there after Google acquired his startup at the time Full and spent 6 years at Google integrating AI 10 plus years ago. And as a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree and an impressive background, this episode is going to be jam-packed with insights from Jacob, the no-code, the AI, the automation space, and a feature demo of his platform, Relay.app, showing a really cool use case. So stick around for that. But first, let's get into this week's news and notes for no-code and AI. Google just launched their A2A, agent-to-agent protocol, which is generating quite a buzz in the AI community. While it's very early, I want to share my initial thoughts. This isn't the revolution some are claiming, but it is significant progress in the multi-agent network space. The protocol addresses key needs like capability discover, agent-to-agent messaging, long-lived asynchronous tasks, and integrating human UX into agent workflows. Importantly, agent-to-agent doesn't replace MCP, which is very popular at the moment. They're designed to work together, though, as Google's own announcement diagrams shows. So my take is that this protocol feels heavy. It feels like it's trying to do a lot. It feels a little bit early, but it gives you many capabilities out of the box, but it might slow down the adoption compared to lighter weight options like MCP and how we're seeing it adapted into so many products today. Reading between the lines, this seems targeted at the mega enterprise and big consulting firms building multi-agent systems with corporations rather than connecting agents across organizations. I'll be watching closely and I'll keep you guys updated with everything as this continues to grow and mature, but A2A, agent-to-agent protocol, it joins MCP in the protocol. And speaking of MCP, NAN has officially launched their own MCP implementation, further cementing this protocol as a standard in the industry. First, we had Zapier, now NAN. All the automation platforms are following suit with MCP. Pretty cool to see. Also, Airtable just dropped something massive, the new Airtable Assistant. This AI-powered tool is your personal app builder, data analyst, and web researcher all wrapped in one. What makes it really cool is its simplicity. Just tell the system what you want and it handles the rest. It's like vibe coding for Airtable, where you could text to prompt stuff, build a database for you, a simple interface, a simple partner portal. It represents Airtable's biggest leap towards building software in a while. It's a new text-to-build interface. Some are worried about access to important data and how they're restricting that access to certain data for certain user roles and permissions. It's very early, but it's a good step for Airtable as they continue to tap into a broader AI market. And talking about a splash, Bolt, the vibe coding platform, is hosting what might be the largest hackathon I have ever seen. They're kicking it off with an open event and concert featuring none other than the Chainsmokers, with over 50 sponsors and a staggering $1 million in total prizes. This is a brilliant way to position Bolt at the center of the developer and creator community. And it's really cool. I wish I could go to that event, that kickoff hackathon. Love what they're doing. But without further ado, let's welcome our featured guest of the day, Jacob Bank, the CEO and founder of Relay.app. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited. I think I was mentioning, we've been circling each other on LinkedIn for a while, and now we finally get to actually talk live.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. You have an incredible track record. Some people like me have been just in the AI space for a couple of years now, but other people like you, it's been a decade and really impressive work. So I would love to just start about learning more about you, where you come from, and talk about the company that you are building, which is Relay.app, an AI agent-focused automation platform. But first, let's talk about you. How did you get to be where you are today?
Yeah, I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin.
Cool.
And maybe the one relevant aspect of my personality, even from a pretty young age in like middle school, I was always like the organized one in our friend group, the one that would figure out, oh, we're going to go there and we're going to leave at this time. And he's got a driver's license, so we can go in his car. And so I always had this kind of weird love of logistics and productivity. Then I did my undergrad in computer science at Cornell in upstate New York, right down the road from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very focused on academic research in machine learning and data mining. In particular, I always liked studying at the intersection of the social sciences and AI. So one of my projects in undergrad was, can we analyze all of the information on Wikipedia and figure out pages you might want to visit based on previous pages you visited, or
Okay.
two authors who have similar profiles. I also did some work on how Twitter information spreads. It was funny. This was like in 2008, and we got a paper rejected from a conference that was like, information spread on Twitter, that's never going to be important. Go study something useful. And I was like, it became important later. So my background was very deeply academic. I was 100% sure I was going to become an artificial intelligence researcher, but I always had a bent towards social science applications of artificial intelligence. I then moved out to the West Coast
And this
in
was like 2010,
yeah,
2013, right?
in 2010, I moved out to the
Okay.
West Coast to start a PhD in the AI lab at Stanford, and that's where the advisor I ended up connecting with, a guy named Yoav Shoham, he had this existing project on time management in the digital calendar. He basically had this observation that time is such an important resource for us, and a digital calendar is so limited in what it can represent. A digital calendar is very good at representing you and I are going to record this podcast at this exact time, but where do you put into the calendar, I want to run 3 times a week? Where do you put into the calendar, I want to make sure I go to bed by 11 every night? Where do you put into the calendar, I need 3 hours to come up with ideas for my podcast? And so when I had the opportunity to join this project, it was like a perfect collision of my academic interest in AI and the social sciences, which like with my like personal productivity nerd core. So I was immediately like, okay, that's the perfect project for me. How can we use AI to help people organize their digital calendar in a way that will help them spend time on whenever is important to them? After a couple of years of working on this project as an academic research project, we built a prototype system. We had a bunch of students install it and see if they procrastinated less on their term papers and stuff like that. I realized with the help of my advisor that I actually wasn't on track to be a great academic researcher. That wasn't the right fit for me. And he told me in very blunt terms, he was like, you're fine at academic research. You're fine. This is a fine project. You're doing fine. You're an okay PhD student. You're not going to be a professor at a top tier school. You're just okay. But there's this other thing that I think you could be really good at, which is turning this nugget of a research idea into a product. Because the way I had been running the research project, I didn't know the words for this later, but I was the PM of the project. Like I hired some undergrads, I dug up
You
some
were the
research money
organizer.
in the department coffers. I hired some undergrads. We ran some user tests. And he was like, yeah, I think you should be doing that rather than, and this was totally transformational for me and put me on the right path. So I ended up dropping on my PhD in 2013 to start this company called Timefold, which is an AI-powered digital calendar. And there was a whole wave of AI digital calendars and email clients at the time. Now, this is not really known at the moment, but even at the time in 2013, that was like the third wave of AI. There had been a big wave of AI in the 80s, and then another wave in the 90s, or in the early 2000s. One of the papers I remember studying as an undergrad was when search engines first started incorporating click-through data and machine learning systems on top of click-through data to better train what you might want to click on, and when email systems started using spam filters. So there was that previous wave of like spam filters and click-through data in the mid-2000s. And then in 2013, we were trying to think like, how can AI be more proactive in helping people make decisions rather than just making sort of classification choices? And we built a good app. It was an iPhone app. We had a few 100,000 users, 4.8 stars. People really loved it. We didn't really know how to turn it into a business. Looking back on it and with the benefit of hindsight, it's so obvious. Of course, make a B2B SaaS company and sell a subscription to it. It's conceptually, if you know the product Motion or the product Clockwise, it was conceptually similar to those products, just their spiritual predecessor. But again, we were shaped by our times because back in 2013, everyone was looking for the next Twitter, the next Instagram, the next Snapchat, the next WhatsApp. It was very much the Uber. That was like 2013 was the era of mobile consumer apps. And
Yeah,
so the bias of company building at the time in Silicon Valley was make a consumer mobile app, get millions of people to use it, figure out how to monetize it later.
yeah, I remember that.
And so if we'd been doing the same company 5 years later, when we had been in the moment of enterprise SaaS, it might have turned out differently. But anyway, we got acquired by Google in 2015. I then spent 6 years at Google where I led the product teams for Gmail, for Google Calendar, for the Google Workspace APIs, for some of our spam phishing and malware work. And there were 2 main themes to my work at Google, one of which is probably less interesting now. The second is quite interesting. The first theme was bringing all the Google products to mobile. Like in 2016, Gmail did not have a native iOS app.
Mm,
Gmail had a native Android app, but it had an iOS app that was just a shell around a web application.
sure.
And so we had to build first-class experiences on mobile. And the second, starting in 2016, was how are we going to incorporate AI into these products to make
9
them
years
better?
ago,
And
which is still, like, the main topic today, right?
yeah,
Ish.
and at the time, there was a ton of skepticism, and that skepticism was accurate. It just was not that easy to build high quality AI powered product experience. So one of the first things we launched in Gmail, I think in 2017, was those 3 suggested replies at the bottom of your mobile email client. At the time when that came out, we thought that was so risky. We're like, oh my God, it's so risky to put 3 little buttons at the bottom of an email with suggestions. It's such a hard machine learning problem to like make sure it's something that you, JJ, would write as opposed to something I, Jacob, would write. And now looking back on that 8 years later, we're like, that's so pedestrian. Of course AI can do that. And so that was my time at Google. And I loved my time at Google because you have the opportunity to impact a product that has billions of
Yeah,
users.
how much did it gross when you were there?
Yeah, when I took over Gmail, I think we had about 800 million monthly active users. And when I left, we had an unannounced number over 2. I don't know if they've announced a new number since 2, so I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
But it's like way more than 2 billion monthly active users of Gmail now. And like I was telling you earlier, I can't take any credit for that. Like I inherited an already successful product and didn't totally screw it up, but definitely I cannot claim to be responsible for any of Gmail's success.
But still, what was it like managing a product where, like, all of your friends were using it kind of thing? Did they ever come up to you and say, "Hey, Jacob, you really need to change this," or whatever?
Totally. So, it's one of these funny feelings, and it demonstrated to me one of the ways that my brain works, and maybe the human brain works, which is weird, is I would look at these dashboards and I would see 2 billion users, and you just can't process what that
Right.
means. But then I would go to a coffee shop and I would see 8 people on Gmail. I'd be like, whoa, that's cool. 8 people are
Yeah.
using my product.
Yeah.
And it is very cool that like to work on something that everyone knows about
That's
and
the
everyone
dream.
has an opinion about, because that means everyone cares,
Yeah.
right? So people would often say, hey, this doesn't work for my particular newsletter reading use case. And I'm like, oh, yep, I can see why we would make this better for your newsletter reading use
Yeah.
case. But then how would that impact the CEO of Verizon? And one of the challenges of Gmail, much like the products you've worked on, is it's a horizontal platform. So it's used by many different people in many different walks of life for many different things. And so at Google, I learned how you deal with scale and complexity, which is a good set of skills in the abstract, but the total wrong preparation for doing a startup. I
Yeah.
actually think this is like my hot take. I think being a PM at Google, especially a successful PM at Google, is the worst possible preparation for doing a startup. Like, it's way worse than opening a hot dog stand in your city. Way, way worse. Because the kind of skills you learn opening a hot dog stand in front of the Buffalo Bills game are going to be way more applicable to building a startup, even if it's a SaaS app, than running Gmail. And we can dive. I don't think that's the main point of our conversation here, but I just think that's a funny observation that when people think, oh, I'm going to go work as a PM at a big company for a few years, and then I'll be prepared to start my startup. I wouldn't recommend that course of action. That's not going to give you this. You'll have to unlearn all those skills if you want to go start a startup. And so I left Google in 2021 and I knew I wanted to start another company. And and then I quickly recruited a founding team around me. We had 2 initial observations. I'm not claiming these were unique to us in any way, but observation number 1 grew out of our time working together on Gmail and Google Calendar, which is, for anyone to get their job done in the real world, they need to work across multiple tools. And it's so obvious when you frame it like that. But when we were on Gmail, we would spend hours and hours debating, what if we move the reply button 2 pixels to the right? What if we change the color of the reply button? We showed it to customers. We'd be like, look how much easier we've made it to reply to emails. And people were like, yeah, whatever. Replying to emails is fine. How do I get my data from Gmail into ClickUp and then into Salesforce and then trigger a new email campaign in Beehive? And we'd be like, I don't know, use the API. Good luck.
Yeah.
And so there was this realization. And again, I don't want to throw my Google colleagues under the bus. It's true of every product team. No product, because you want to work on what you can control. And every product team, whether it's Notion or Airtable or Figma or Gmail, like just naturally, they're going to spend most of their effort on the things they can control within their product. And it gives you a warped view of how your users actually use your product. Because you think it's like when, let's say, the user's actual work is the sun and Gmail is the earth. Like when you work on Gmail, you think the sun revolves around the earth. You're like, oh, and we need to figure out how every touch point happens in Gmail. When of course, in reality, Gmail or any one product is just one touch point in a thing that in a workflow the user needs to get something done. So that was number one. Products don't talk to each other well enough. And I didn't think there were nearly enough people working at the intersection of multiple products. Zapier had been around, Make had been around, the space better than I do. So I'm not saying no one was working on it, but it was underappreciated. And then second, this was in, remember, summer 2021, a year and 2 months before ChatGPT came out. I was like, AI is going to be important. Even not knowing how magically LLMs would evolve over the next couple of years, even with the technology that we had in summer 2021, I was like, we're not using this enough. We're not using this enough. There are many ways that even the level of technology at that time could have helped people do their work. And so those were the two founding principles. We wandered in the desert for a couple of years trying to figure out how to put those two founding principles into a product. We built a stand-up tool. We built a knowledge base tool. We built an employee onboarding tool. We built a bunch of random stuff that it all had the same theme, though. It connected to multiple tools that it tried to use AI to do something interesting. And then eventually, what gets us into the no-code world is in October 2023, so about a year and a half ago, we launched Relay.app. And Relay.app has gone through 3 phases since launch. Phase number 1 was from like October 2023 until like June 2024, which is we wanted to be the modern alternative to Zapier. In the same way that Linear is the modern alternative to Jira, and Loops is the modern alternative to MailChimp, and Adio is the modern alternative to Salesforce. Like in every SaaS category, there's a 10-plus-year-old market leader, and then there's the polished, designed, easy to use, high performance kind of upstart product. And so be that, okay, we can be that to Zapier. Again, no knock on Zapier, great product, great team, but it's tough to run a product that's 12 years old. Like you can't rethink things in the same way that you would if you were starting from scratch. So that was phase 1 of the company. We're an easier to use version of Zapier, essentially. Phase 2 after launch was from June 2024 until the end of 2024. So just about 4 months ago. And that's when we were like, we're still not using AI enough. Yeah, we had AI steps in the workflow where you could plug in your own OpenAI API key and you could write in a prompt if you were a savvy user. But AI wasn't really the centerpiece of the product yet. And so in June, we did a big launch to say, AI automations and AI workflows, this is what this product is for. And we oriented around the whole product around AI automations and workflows. Now, it's still critical that it can connect to all your tools. It's still critical that it can do paths and webhooks and iterators and all the stuff you expect in a no-code workflow automation tool. But we really built everything around AI, and that included a few things. That included built-in access to all the models. It included really easy-to-use step types for common actions like extraction, summarization, translation, transcription. It included these first-class human-in-the-loop steps because in an AI world, you want to check that the AI did a good job. And so that was in June. We're an AI-focused automation tool, but we were still using the word automation, and we were still in this sort of no-code automation bucket. We talked about our ideal use case. I don't know if this will resonate. We talked about our ideal use case as an AI sandwich, where data comes from one product, you do some AI intelligence on top, some AI on top of it, and then you put in another product. So a canonical example is I receive an email in Gmail with a PDF attachment of an invoice. I use AI to extract the amount, the due date, the vendor name, whatever from the invoice, and then I write it out into Google Sheets or wherever, QuickBooks, Airtable, pick your favorite. Enough. And so that was like an AI sandwich. And we would see some users do things more complex than an AI sandwich. Another example would be a new YouTube video was just published on our channel. I want to automatically generate a summary of it. Then I want to automatically create a LinkedIn post and a tweet because I want to do a couple of different things in an AI workflow. But the headline of our website was still the new standard for automation. We were still framing the product as an automation tool. And my hot take for you is that what I learned, and I'm not sure this applies to everyone in the ecosystem, but what we learned is that framing ourselves as a no-code automation tool was not reaching the right audience. Because, and I don't know why, but when I would do interviews about this, when I would say no-code automation, people are like, yeah, I know you said the word no, but just the fact that you have code in there and all means it's probably not for me. In fact, by trying to separate ourselves from code, we were still putting the word code in people's minds. And that is really intimidating to lots of people. No code tools, love them, but they have a total audience of maybe 10 million users, let's say. ChatGPT has an audience of 500 million users. Gmail has an audience of well over 2 billion users. And we found that by calling ourselves a no-code automation tool, we were artificially restricting the set of people who could find the tool useful. So at the very end of last year, at the beginning of this year, we again reframed the product into being an AI agent tool. And instead of saying create no code automations, we said, create AI that can do work for you. Because our big learning is that people do not want a no code automation platform. They want AI to do work on their behalf. And yes, it turns out that a no code automation platform is a very valuable tool by which they can help AI do work for themselves. And so literally, we changed that tagline on our landing page from the new standard for automation to create AI agents that work for you. That one string change alone on the landing page boosted conversion from 8% to 10%.
Mm.
And I've been posting on LinkedIn for a while. I was posting on LinkedIn all through 2024. A good post for me was like 10,000 impressions.
Yeah.
I had about 4,000 or 5,000 followers at the end of the year, 10,000 impressions. The very first post I did on here's a cool AI agent, check it out, got like 600,000 impressions. And over the last 4 months, I've gotten something like 6 million impressions on LinkedIn. I've gone up to 32,000 followers. And I'm not saying that I'm some amazing influencer or content creator. I'm just saying that there's so much demand for practical, concise, useful content about how people can put AI to work for them. And so that's the third phase of the company. We're an AI workflow and agent builder, but the spirit is we want to help non-technical people who even the word no code is scary for them figure out how to get value out of AI. And that brings us to today. Sorry for the very long intro, but hopefully that gives you the kind of the context that you were hoping for.
It's perfect, and really feel like we've gone through a very similar journey, except for the whole Google part, but with no code learning and learning about that terminology, building
Right.
content for no code folks, only for it to be seen by very few folks.
And
And
I feel your pain because I see all your posts and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. People don't appreciate how amazing this is. And so I think it's a responsibility on all of us to take these really cool tools, techniques, guides, and just figure out how to get them to more people, whether it's adapting our language, adapting our communication style. I think you've been doing this really well with like your courses and your guides and your kind of step-by-step introductions to all the terminology. I think the demand is there now. The demand is there in a way that it hasn't been there for the last 5 years. And so we just need to capitalize on it.
yeah, AI is really accelerating no code in a lot of ways without people knowing that it's no code, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Another founder that we had on the show he said AI is no code's best chance at succeeding
Yes.
because it just generates so much more awareness, and people are looking for AI, but what they don't know is they really need a no code tool to administer that AI for them.
Yes.
But they
Yes.
don't know that, so you don't wanna have that terminology because it scares them or it's new or it's unfamiliar, and so they wanna
Exactly.
follow that buzzword to get what they need.
Let me tell you how I've been explaining it, and you can tell me if this resonates with you. So everyone is looking for ways to use AI to help themselves get work done. And I think there's two fundamental ways you can use AI. One is I'm in a live session actively doing work, and AI is helping me as I go. So that's a chatbot like ChatGPT or Claude. It's like I'm literally typing messages to ChatGPT and it is typing messages back. That's a live interactive session. Or a live interactive copilot, like with Cursor or like with Google Gemini Copilot or the Microsoft Copilot. Like I'm writing a doc or I'm writing in my IDE and I'm writing code and then the Copilot is helping me. That's class one of AI. I think people are already very familiar with those tools because they see ChatGPT, they see Cursor, they see
Yeah,
all these tools taking off. And the second class of AI is you don't have to be there. You don't have to
yeah,
be hands-on keyboard. It is
sure.
happening behind the scenes on your behalf in the same way that an employee or company would work
Mhm.
behind the scenes on your behalf. And whether you call that an automation tool, whether you call that a workflow tool, whether you call it an agent tool, in practice, you're going to have some combination of all three of those. That's the thing that I think is going to be even more impactful because that's when you actually have a new team of AI helpers working on your behalf. And so my hope is that we can reframe no code from AI that works for you, whether we latch onto the word agent or something else.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. I think generally this is such an interesting and well-moving space, but I think AI is definitely here to stay and the terminology for that and just latching onto AI, even agent is a little bit unclear. So finding some kind of AI automation is very clear for many people
Yeah,
and they like that. So I think it's a great move on your part. I also had a company called No Code Alliance that I've
right,
now rebranded to makersclub.ai because it's just the no code terminology or the moniker just is a very hobbyish kind of thing in terms of only the folks that kind of know it go for it, and then those that don't, they don't get it. And
right.
so I'm even the name of this podcast this week in No Code Plus AI, we added AI onto that to get there, but it's like How do we take this?
Exactly. And it's funny that you mention AI agents. This is the thing I've been most surprised by, because AI agent is a technical term. No one throwing around the word agent
Mhm.
really knows what it means. The advisor I was mentioning, he wrote the first paper that basically, he was a multi-agent systems researcher, and he introduced the concept of agent-oriented programming in like the late 80s. That was like part of my advisor's PhD thesis in the late 80s was like introducing AI agents. And I'm just so surprised to see that term take off, because I thought that term was going to remain a technical term. It gives me icky vibes, like an agent. It sounds unnatural, but for whatever reason, that's the word that's
Yeah.
connecting with people. And so for a while, I was like, no, AI agent is the wrong word. You don't want agents. You want workflows. You want automations. Like, you don't want
Yeah.
agents. And now I'm just like, hey, let people call it whatever they want to call it and just try to ride the wave. Because often we can't pick the terminology. We have to adapt to the terminology
Yeah,
that's
and we don't wanna
working.
build that market. It
Yeah.
takes too long to build that market, it's too expensive, so find a market that's already established, that's growing quickly, and
Yeah.
go that way. I recently launched an AI agent course for similar things, like, I've been teaching no code for
Right.
5 years, and barely anyone, hundreds of people, thousands of people subscribe, but, like,
Yeah.
I'm looking to impact tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of
Yeah,
people,
and
but
I
I
definitely
never
don't
got there,
wanna,
and so just looking at Google search trends, it was just clear as day that the folks searching for no code, the folks searching for AI, the folks searching for AI agents, and just the trend seeing that way, and just if I'm gonna educate, I wanna educate as many people as possible, and it only makes sense for me to educate in a topic that is growing in that way. How do we tighten up and use AI to account for that, to increase our margins kind of thing, which is going to create a lot of relocation, displacement, etc. And that no AI and no code at the forefront, they need to help us make that change. They're more valuable than ever, I believe.
totally. And I offer an optimistic view on things, which is that people are really resourceful and really good at learning new things. And yes, there will be displacement, but people are so inherently talented and curious and creative that they'll figure out ways to use their new tools.
Yeah. All right. I got one question, and then I would love to dive into a
Yeah.
demo of Relay.app. So you could be at any company right now. Your background, you could be at any company, but go make your own thing. And I'm not going to say struggle, but like you are not making the
Oh,
money.
struggle.
You are not
Oh,
making the
struggle.
money that
Struggle is
you
the right
should be
word for
making.
sure.
So are you mad? Like, what is that passion, that drive? Just like, I'm going to do this and I want to do it this way, that I think many of our users or our listeners can.
First is, Um, it's really dependent on career and family stage. So when I'm recruiting people to a startup, if they say, I am the sole income earner and we have this mortgage and this many kids and I need a guaranteed stable income, I don't want you to put that at risk. We started Relay. I was 32 years old. We had just had our first kid. We had a second kid on the way. My wife is a pediatrician, so we have kind of family stability. I had just spent 6 years at Google, so I'd built up a bit of a nest egg. And so first I had the flexibility. It's like, okay, I can spend a couple of years earning less than my
Mhm.
maximum earning potential right now, and I'm not going to be, letting my family down. And,
Yeah.
and so I don't want to dismiss that as like a really important consideration. There are many people who I talk to about joining a startup, and I'm like, don't do that right now. Don't do that right now. Like, you're not in, like, that is not the right situation for you to take that kind of risk. So first, baseline, I had a stable enough family situation that I could take that kind of risk. Within that, I was optimizing for one thing, which is personal learning and growth. Because I'd gotten to a point at Google, I think I said I was 32 years old. I'd been at Google for 6 years. I think I was
Crazy.
31, just about to turn 32, something like
Crazy that
that.
how young you were at that
Yeah,
point,
and I
and
and I
you had
and I
already
was
been
like,
there.
yeah, no, when I took over Gmail, I was 25. So we'd
Wow.
go into these meetings with like whatever the CIO of Verizon, and people would be like, "Who is this child?" But he does
Yeah.
seem to know a lot about email. Why?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a very cool experience to have at a relatively young age, and I kind of saw, okay, here's what my next 10 years would look like at Google or a Google-esque public company. And I was like, I still felt the beginning of my career, not even the middle of my career, let alone the end of my career. So I really wanted to optimize for learning, growth, and new experiences. And there is nothing that makes you learn and grow like starting your own thing, because you have to do everything. You have to do HR, you have to do finance, you have to do marketing, you have to do sales. You have to make something happen from nothing. And so that's why, luckily, Relay's going really well right now. But there were moments in the struggle, but I never imagined a world of when we would get our first paying customer. I never would have regretted the decision. Because even in the depth of the struggle, again, knowing that I had like enough of a family cushion that I could,
Yeah.
still put food on the table, I never would have regretted the decision once. It turned out, so that was number one, learning and growth. Then number two was I did feel like I had this idea of something that could be very powerful, and I couldn't figure out an existing company that would be a better place to do that. Because my mindset was always like, I want to solve this problem in the world. I want to help make people more productive. Look, can I do this within Google? Not quite. It's a little bit too hard to change things. It's a little hard to do things.
Yeah.
Could I do this at an up and coming productivity company like a Notion or an Airtable or a Figma? Nah, I didn't feel like I could quite do it there. And so
Mhm.
I felt like, this is the opportunity, the right way to go after this opportunity, as high risk as it is, to do it on my own. And that was from the mission orientation and the intellectual passion of pursuing this idea. And then the third was, I am a believer that like our careers are long, and things that can be short-term risky can be long-term not risky. So what I mean by that is a bunch of my colleagues have stayed at Google because starting a company felt really risky. But I'll put the question to you, what is riskier right now? Being someone who's been at Google for their entire 15-year career and then gets laid off, or someone who was at Google for 6 years, then started their own company for 3 years, then worked at another company for 3 years? I would hire that second person any day because they have a more of a diversity of skills and experiences, and they've shown
Works.
their
Yeah.
willingness to strike out on their own. And so I felt like there was short-term downside for sure, but I didn't see any long-term downside, and I saw huge long-term upside, if the company ended up doing well. And so those are
Yeah.
some of the ways I thought through it. Some may be relevant to your audience, some may not be. I'm so happy to help people talk through their personal situation, because one of my big goals is to like demystify some of the FUD around starting a company. Like, I first want to acknowledge there are very real challenges and sacrifices, but it's not as bad as people make it sound. And it's
On that
way more rewarding. It's way more rewarding than people make it sound, even when it's not
Yeah,
going well.
it's like it's so true. Like you leave the 40-hour work week to work 80 hours, but because they're your own 80 hours, you feel so much better with them kind of.
I would even push back on that because at Google, I was probably averaging about 60 hours a week. And the reason for that was I just had a lot of meetings during the day. Like,
Yeah,
I
well,
would
how
have
can you get your work
meetings.
done? Yeah.
I would have meetings every day from 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. That's your 45 hours right there. And I still had real work I wanted to do. I wanted to write
Yeah.
documents, wanted to make decks, I wanted to think on my own. Whereas with the startup, there's no busy work. There's no meetings that you have to just there to be there. And so I don't actually think I'm working any more hours at the
Mm,
startup, but I'm working with a way higher degree of intensity.
yeah.
Like at my meetings, we're like, yep, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here, but I'm not contributing to the conversation anyway. In a startup, every minute is like this. Like, I am on, I'm engaged, like it's super important. And so it is tiring, but honestly more energizing than tiring, right?
Fulfilling. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That
Let's do
app.
a demo.
Let's do a demo.
Okay. So the use case I want to highlight here is one that I think is cool because it shows off something that I think AI is really good at, but that I don't see people using quite much, which is synthesis across set of content that you might. So the use case I'm going to show is every day I want daily report of the open support issues that have been filed by our customers. And I want the AI to flag for me anything that really demands my attention, maybe because it's a VIP customer or because the issue's been open for long. So let me just share my screen and show you how to build that in 5 minutes.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Can you see a Relay.app tab?
I can. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I just created a new workflow. I'm going to title it demo, the support issue summary. And so I'm guessing most of the people listening are somewhat familiar with no-code automation tools, whether it's a Zapier or a Make.com. And so we know what a trigger is. A trigger is what's going to tell the AI to wake up and start some work on our behalf. And most triggers that I set up are triggers based on actions in an application, which is the first bucket of triggers we have here. Like when a new email comes in Gmail, or when a new event is scheduled in Google Calendar, or when a record is updated in Airtable. But in this case, I actually want to do this daily. So I'm going to choose a scheduled trigger, which just runs automatically with the past. So I'm going to hit scheduled. I want to start a single run on a schedule, and I want to do every day at 8 a.m. Pacific time. That seems pretty good for the trigger. Now, the first thing I need to do is I need to go get the bugs. I need to go get the issues so that the AI knows what to process. And I'm going to do that with a find step. Some automation tools call it a find step. Others call it a lookup step. Others call it a search step. Same thing. You're going to set some criteria of what you want to look up in a given corpus. For us, linear, as our bug, people listening might use Asana or Jira or Monday or ClickUp. The same concept would work with management or issue tracking tool. And I'm going to select find issues. And then I'm going to navigate through a couple basic things, like I'm going to select the right team. And then here, with any find step or search step, you have two options. Do you want to find one specific thing, like I'm looking up a specific contact in my CRM, or do I want to find all the things that match? And in this case, I want to find all the things that match because I want to have a consolidated summary across any support issues that are open. So I'm going to click all matching issues. And so now I want to figure out which issues to find. This purple button is a cool thing that we haven't launched yet. I'm not going to show that in this demo. I'm just going to set up the filter manually, which is I want to find.
I have an idea what that button does.
Yeah, I want to find all issues that have the label. This is our support label. It has that little like buoy. So I want to find all issues that have the support label, and their status is to do. Let's say that should give me a start. Everything with the support label whose status is to do. If no issues are found, again, I have to decide, like, what do I want to do if it doesn't find anything? Is that an error? Like, should I pause the run and send myself a notification? Or should I just continue? In this case, if we find no open support issues, that would be amazing. It's literally never happened in my life, but it would be amazing. And so I'm just going to continue without a result. And so now this step is going to look up the support issues. And you can see I can test this step just to make sure it found some stuff. And it looks like, yeah, it found 7 or 8 open support issues. Now the magic will be asking AI to do something useful. And so I'm going to an AI step. So I'm going to go back to that step menu where I previously selected find issues from linear. I'm going to select AI. And I think I mentioned we have a bunch of built-in AI steps that try to make it easier for people to come up with ideas of what they want to do with AI. There's extract, there's summarize, there's classify, there's write text, like for content creation, there's translation, there's information extraction, there's some multimodal stuff like generating images or transcribing audio. In this case, I'm going to show you how to use flexible step, which is the custom prompt step, because that's kind of it's the most flexible tool in the toolbox that you can use for a lot of things. And I'm just going to write a simple prompt that's like, given a list of open support issues, please write a digest. Highlight any issues that have been open more than 3 days with, let me see if I can get a fire emoji real quick. With a fire emoji. Cool. So now I've given the AI instructions about what I want it to do. What I need to do is I need to attach the data that it's going to use to write that digest. And so I go to the attach data button and I select the issues that I looked up in the previous deal. So this is why you need to use a tool like Relay rather than just pure ChatGPT, because you need to give it access, like live access to pulling data from your corpus, which is really handy.
Relay that data.
Sorry?
To relay that data.
Yeah, exactly. Then if you want, you can select a specific model. In this case, I'm just going to let Relay pick. And on the right, you have to know based on your output that we think you want. We think you want some text, and you're going to want a rich text message that you're going to put into Slack or something. If I had written instead, give me a list of issues with the name, the due date, then it would have said structured data that you want to put into a spreadsheet, and here are the different fields. So AI is very good at inferring like the right output schema, and this is critical in the context of workflows and automations because almost always the output of this AI step, it's not just a chatbot that's coming back. It needs to flow into some subsequent step. So once again, I can test this step, and let's just see what the AI comes up with. Okay, so it wrote a little digest. It said, here are the open issues. It marked 3 with fire. This looks, honestly, pretty good. But just for the sake of it, let me show an iteration, which is like, I'm just going to start with one more thing, which is hide engineers that have too many issues assigned. Okay. So now that I have this, I'm going to go to Slack, and I'm going to send this to myself.
Great.
And I'm going to attach the output of the previous AI step.
By the way, it's a very easy interface for our audio listeners. It's a very step-by-step. Stuff just makes sense. I haven't spent much time in this app, but it makes sense. Like, yeah, you would click that. You would click that. And it's not intimidating in any way. It's very visual first, but you're taking many different applications using AI sandwich and bringing it together.
Yes, it is a classic AI sandwich. So I noticed we only have a couple minutes left. So I'm just going to run this end to end to show you the full experience. I'm going to hit start a test run. So it's going to go look for the issues. It's going to find those from linear. It's going to prompt AI based on
You can see it processing in each
Yeah,
step
you can see
real
that it looked
time.
up the issues. You can see it's now calling the model to get the AI. And you can see that it just sent me a message in Slack saying there are 7 open issues. Here are the ones that are open for days. And then here are some recommendations about what to do. And
A nice input. It's super cool on the back end, front end there. It makes a lot of sense.
so with that, I think we should close the demo. I would love to come back again and show the V2 advanced level of going back and drafting a reply to each customer.
I've been fielding calls from roofers and plumbers and everything. Everyone's like, how do I start using AI in my
Yeah.
business? Right. And it's just like, I mean, I could show you so many different ways, but like, what is the scalable way for small businesses to do it? It's easy enough that they could just do it themselves now, but it does take a little bit of education. It does take a little bit of knowing the systems. And I haven't quite personally figured that.
Yeah. Again, I would love to come back on and show you we're working on that. I think the hardest thing is to know what to want. For example, I was just meeting with a contractor who was like, I want to schedule appointments for Monday.com. And I'm like, tell me more about what you mean. Where do you want the appointments to go? Google, great. What happens in Monday that lets you know I add a new thing in Monday? And I'm like, every time you add a new thing in Monday, he's like, oh, no, just when I flip the scheduled thing. I'm like, okay, what Google Calendar do you want to put on? Oh, the right contractor. Well, how do you know who the right contractor is? And so it's this sort of like, guided interview based process. And
Yeah.
whoever can productize that first, and
Yeah.
everyone's working on it, including us, including
Yeah.
Gumloop, including Lindy, including Zapier, everyone's working on it. Whoever can nail that first, or if we can all nail it together as an industry, that's going to be the moment that takes us from millions to tens of millions or hundreds of millions.
Jacob, it's been just wonderful getting to
This
know
is a
you
blast.
more in the application. Thank you for making the time to come on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a blast, JJ.
Awesome. You're welcome back anytime and best of luck.
Thanks so much.
That was such a cool episode with Jacob. I just really vibed on so many of the things that he was saying. He's had so many of the similar learnings about no code, the positioning, building a no code platform, the automation space, now tapping into AI agents. I just echo a lot of those thoughts. I think I thought we were on the same brainwave, just talking through it together. What an impressive background he comes from. His answer to the question about if you could be anywhere working, why are you struggling to make your own startup, I think resonates a lot with our audience, you guys, many listeners of just with these skills, we could be doing a lot of things. And where do we want to spend our time? What kind of things do we want to build? What kind of projects do we want to be a part of? All of that is a bigger part of just knowing what you want. And I give Jacob a lot of credit for having that incredible career within corporate Google and then realizing, you know what, I've done this. I got something else I want to do. Let me get uncomfortable for a couple years and try to figure it out. And that's exactly what he did. And kudos to him and anyone else in their shoes. I think he also framed it really well of just, hey, he's not going to leave his family out to dry in that sense. Like they were safe. They had a nest egg. They had a good chance to do it. He took advantage of it. Really cool to see across the board. Glad they're doing well. Glad to see the momentum. Seems like a really great platform. I'm excited to dive more into it and build some more tutorials and guides around Relay.app. But otherwise, what a show this week. What a guest. Incredible news. That Bolt hackathon still has me. Wow, that is crazy. The Chainsmokers. Anyways, I'll see you next week. We have another great show for you. So I will see you next week at No Code Plus AI. See you, gang.